On July 29, 2018, at 6:47 a.m., the Indonesian holiday island of Lombok was struck by 6.4 magnitude earthquake. The disaster killed 20 people. But just when many thought the worst was over, the island was shaken yet again by another more destructive earthquake measuring 6.9 on the Richter scale. And then, 3 more major earthquakes of similar magnitudes hit the island again in quick succession. All these happened within a span of just a few weeks.
We know there's a big earthquake fault off the north coast of Lombok, and it's had earthquakes in the historical past, so this didn't come as a surprise at all, really.
It was a day when all of a sudden, the Paradise Island turned into hell on earth.
So I think this event should like a wake-up call.
But why has Lombok been hit by a series of powerful earthquakes in a span of just 3 weeks? Are these earthquakes nothing more than a harbinger of worse things to come? Life has come to a standstill in Lombok. And fear is everywhere on this Indonesian tourist resort island following 5 major earthquakes that occurred within days of each other. The disasters have left the people and survivors of this island in a state of shock. Many are now living on the edge, not knowing when the next big one will come. All around, there's the unspoken grief over the loss of their loved ones in the disaster. For many of them, precious life is gone forever. Most of northern Lombok now lies in ruins. Thousands of buildings had collapsed or been badly damaged. And many lives are left in tatters. Almost everyone has a sad story to tell. Terrible memories, which can't easily be swept away. Raditya was born just a month before the first earthquake struck on 29th July 2018. The house where he and his mom, Zora, once stayed managed to withstand the first quake, but not the second. Muzayin is Raditya's uncle. He and his aunt Zora used to live just next door to each other. When the second earthquake struck on the evening of 5th August 2018, Muzayin managed to get his own family members out of their house before it collapsed. He then came over to help his aunt Zora, who was then trying frantically to save her baby. Her baby, Raditya, survived the ordeal, but not Zora.
Nah, pas malam itu adalah malam yang sangat luar biasa bagi kami, di mana kami pada malam itu sangat histeris sekali, karena malam itu guncangan yang sangat luar biasa dari gempa pada malam itu yang kekuatannya 7 skala Richter. Di mana pada malam itu adalah kami sedang baru saja pulang memberikan sumbangan kepada salah satu korban kita yang ada di Bayan. Ya, nah dan malam itu baru saja dari saya pribadi baru pulang dari Bayan setelah sholat maghrib dan mau sholat isya. Pada saat itu juga Ibu Zora sebenarnya dalam keadaan sholat sebenarnya. Ketika dalam goncangan gempa dan lain sebagainya, kemudian anaknya menangis dan beliau pun keluar menyelamatkan anaknya. Nah sampai di luar anaknya dilempar ke berugak di posisinya seperti di sana, tepatnya di sana, dan beliau terjebak oleh reruntuhan itu.
Zora's legs were crushed by the falling debris just moments after she threw her 1-month-old baby, Raditya, to safety. She clung to her life momentarily, but she finally succumbed to her injuries.
Kaki dan pahanya ini sudah bisa terkilir pada saat itu. Terkilir, bisa Artinya udah lumpuh banget, parah total, nggak bisa nyambung, bahkan nggak nyambung. Bisa dikatakan mau putus pada saat itu gitu. Kenapa kita katakan bisa putus? Karena bisa mohon maaf, ini bisa ke belakang dia, kepala ini nih, kakinya ini bisa ke belakang gitu pada waktu itu. Ya, inilah posisinya kita kemarin ketika evakuasi Ibu Zohra itu. Nah, dan posisi anaknya yang bisa diselamatkan oleh salah satu warga berada di beluga ini. Anaknya bisa dilempar ke beluga ini dan diselamatkan oleh warga. Sementara Ibu Zohra itu persis di sinilah dia terjebak di tempat di dalam ini, di reruntuhan ini. Ya, sehingga inilah yang kami evakuasi, mencari linggis, mencari barang-barang yang bisa kita pakai untuk mengevakuasinya.
Governor of West Nusa Tenggara in Lombok, Zulkifli Mansyah, visited many of the devastated areas in the region in the aftermath of the earthquake. He says that many of the residents were caught off guard when the second earthquake happened.
They did not expect the second earthquake, which was, worse compared to the previous one. So they were surprised, and they did not find a way to escape from the mosque, from their house, and it was very quick. That's why they didn't really understand what happened at that time. So a lot of victims simply because the situation was so quick, so bad, and so on and so forth.
Banyak yang tertimpa. Sebagian besar adalah tertimpa oleh reruntuhan bangunan. Karena kebetulan ada rumahnya yang berhimpitan, sudah hampir menyelamatkan diri, tertindih, ada yang sempat dibawa ke hospital, sempat dibawa ke puskesmas, tapi pada saat bersamaan juga puskesmas itu runtuh juga. Bahkan ada tenaga medis, satu orang bidan, karena berniat untuk menyelamatkan orang lain, tetapi ternyata dia juga kena runtuhan puskesmas, sehingga dia juga meninggal. Ada perawat kita atau ada bidan juga yang meninggal di sini.
Everywhere you go, you'll find residents with his or her own personal tale of grief and loss to tell. 37-year-old farmer Herpan lost many close relatives, including 2 of his aunts and a nephew in the tragedy. A few days after the incident, Herpan was seen waiting for his brother-in-law, Muhyiddin, who was trapped underneath the rubble. Muhyiddin's father was also there at the scene. There, he hoped and prayed that his son would come out of the collapsed houses alive.
Selesai sholat di masjid baru terjadi gempa ini. Nah, kita sama-sama lari semua ke lapangan. Nah, setelah kita di lapangan baru saya dapat informasi kalau kakak saya ini jatuh. Sekaligus dengan rumahnya. Dia sempat keluar rumah. Itu kan, dia mau lari. Tapi karena teras rumahnya itu jatuh duluan di depan, sehingga dia terhalang untuk melarikan diri. Kemudian anaknya ini sempat melihat dia pegang pohon beringin, di mana dia ditemukan sekarang ini. Itu dia belum lari itu, tanah yang di depannya itu sudah ambrol duluan. Makanya jatuh sekaligus dengan rumahnya. Ini yang tersisa rumah aslinya, ada dia sambung ke belakang rumah. Kamar untuk anaknya sekaligus dengan WC-nya itu, dengan dapur di belakang.
Such a heart-wrenching moment proved too difficult for his father.
Saya tidak bisa bayangkan. Ya. Setiap saya ingat itu pasti saya nangis. Termasuk saudara saya yang belum ditemukan ini. Setiap hari saya sedih kalau saya ingat dia. Kebetulan pada malam itu kan saya ngomong terakhir sama dia gitu. Sebelum terjadi itu. Saya sempat ngobrol sama dia waktu saya nonton balap sama dia itu. Nah, saya kan dua malam kebetulan saya berturut-turut ke rumahnya. Saya duduk bersama dengan dia. Dan yang paling saya sedihkan, almarhum ini sangat baik sama anak-anak saya. Dia tidak pandang anak saudara, dia tidak pandang ipar sama saya. Dia seperti saudara kandung saya sudah gitu. Apapun yang saya minta sama dia itu selalu dikabulkan kalau selama itu masih ada lah gitu kan, selama bisa. Dan anak saya itu dianggap seperti anak kandungnya sendiri.
Lombok lies just next to Indonesia's popular tourist haven, Bali. It's quieter and comparatively a less traveled island of Indonesia. But it's been gaining in popularity of late due to efforts by the Indonesia government to turn the island into the next Bali when the disaster struck. On 29th July 2018, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake hit the island. The incident killed 20 people. About a week later, on 5th August 2018, another earthquake around 6.9 on the Richter scale hit Lombok, killing a total of 469 people. And just 4 days later, on 9th August, another 5.9 magnitude earthquake occurred on the same island. 2 people were killed. 2 more earthquakes followed soon after on 19th August 2018, measuring 6.3 and 6.9 on the Richter scale respectively, killing 16 people. The epicenter of the quake was under the northern section of Lombok. When the earthquake struck the island, the first thing that came to the minds of most people was the 2004 Aceh earthquake, which killed more than 200,000 people. Fortunately, this time around, the earthquakes did not trigger a tsunami.
Well, with all due respect to those who have suffered in Lombok because of this earthquake, this series of earthquakes, these 6.4s, 6.9s are like a fly on compared to an elephant. The 9.2 that occurred in Aceh in 2004 and the aftershock, which was an 8.7, and then the next aftershock, which is an 8.4 in 2007, were monstrously larger. That when a fault breaks very close to the surface of the ocean floor, it displaces the surface, which then displaces the water. And that water has to equilibrate then. The surface of the sea is flat. So if you cause a bulge of a meter or a half meter on the seafloor, it then has to equilibrate by forming a tsunami and running out in all directions. So if that happened this time, it happened at a small enough scale that it wasn't dangerous or devastating, right? Now, if a fault breaks 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 kilometers beneath the surface of the sea, then it doesn't deform the sea as much. And so there's no dangerous tsunami formed.
Right now, there's some 400,000 residents who are living in 1,000 temporary shelters set up at open spaces and fields after the earthquakes destroyed their homes. Many are living in trauma due to the frequent aftershocks. But for some, help came too little, too late.
Bisa jadi karena dalam saat ini masih ada warga-warga kami yang dalam kondisi kritis, ada. Bahkan kemarin ada yang meninggal di tenda karena memang tidak mampu tim medis ini untuk menolong sekian ratus orang, ada yang luka ringan, berat dan lain sebagainya. Bahkan ada orang tua yang meninggal di pengungsian. Artinya mungkin itu juga traumanya sudah begitu besar sehingga tidak bisa tertolong dengan baik. Akhirnya kemarin ada yang meninggal tambahan kemarin itu di desa kami yang di sini.
The string of earthquakes has so far killed more than 550 people in Lombok. Hundreds of thousands of people have also lost their homes as a result of the disaster. But while the number of fatalities may be much smaller compared to the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, many are asking how and why did this happen again? And within a short span of time, what else can the government do to minimize the loss of lives of residents living on the ring of fire? On August 5th, 2018, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake rocked the Indonesian island of Lombok. it was the most destructive since the first 29th July earthquake that killed 20 people. At least 460 people lost their lives in the August 5th incident alone. Infrastructural damages, on the other hand, ran into tens of millions of dollars. Colonel Ahmad Rizal is the task force commander of the Lombok earthquake disaster emergency. The task force was formed immediately after the first earthquake hit Lombok on 29th July 2018 to help in the relief efforts. Just like many other residents in Lombok, he's equally surprised at how the island could be hit by an earthquake repeatedly and within a very short span of time.
Yang paling sulit menurut kami memprediksi gempa-gempa berikutnya. Karena sampai dengan sore hari ini sudah 707 kali gempa susulan. Memprediksi gempa itu yang paling sulit kami, karena terus terang kami belum memiliki teknologi mengantisipasi gempa susulan. Karena perlu sosialisasi dan memberikan masukan kepada masyarakat supaya tidak panik dengan adanya gempa-gempa susulan. Karena pada saat kemarin setelah 7 skala Richter itu masih sempat terjadi gempa susulan berkekuatan 6,2 skala Richter yang posisi gempa tersebut lebih mendekati permukaan 10 km di bawah permukaan bumi. Ini juga goncangannya cukup besar. Nah, ini yang sempat membuat kemarin agak panik karena pas kami di sini kemarin. Setiap hari kami membuat evaluasi kegiatan sore hari karena dengan makin banyaknya personil pasukan yang turun di lapangan, banyak yang ditemukan jenazah-jenazah yang masih di bawah tumpukan-tumpukan puing-puing. Maka hari ke hari makin bertambah, hari-hari makin bertambah, dan ini dilaporkan dari masing-masing kepala desa kepada camat dan tercatat oleh para Babin Kamtibmas maupun anggota kami Babinsa yang ada di lapangan. Lebih kurang hampir 466 orang.
As the locals are slowly coming to terms with the losses and the scale of the tragedy, the scientific community is also trying to make sense of what had happened in the otherwise peaceful island of Lombok.
Indikator ini yang pasang surut tertinggi sekarang kan di sini yang basah. Yang basahnya dari yang kering.
Shortly after the earthquakes in Lombok, geologist Danny Hillman and his team were on the ground to collect more data about the recent earthquakes which devastated the island and what they can learn from the latest string of events. Danny and his team received data that the earthquake has uplifted northern Lombok. They are here to verify that information.
We do this to reconstruct the history of the earthquake cycles in the past, like 1,000 years in the Mentawai. So we can see the cycles where the earthquake accumulate the energy and release the big earthquake, accumulate again for a few hundred years and release then again.
The Indonesian archipelago sits on the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. The Pacific Ring of Fire is a horseshoe-shaped arc around the Pacific Ocean where most earthquakes and volcanic activity in the world occur. Approximately 81% of the world's most destructive earthquakes and 90% of the greatest volcanic eruptions have occurred along this arc. According to geologists, the earthquakes that occurred on the island of Lombok since late July are the result of a collision between the Australian and Eurasian tectonic plates just below the archipelago.
Lombok actually is part of the big arc of volcanoes on the islands of Indonesia, going all the way from northern Sumatra all the way down through southern Sumatra, Java, Bali, Lombok, Sumbawa, and out to Flores and so on. And those volcanoes are there because the Indian and Australian plates are subducting. They're oceanic plates, they're dense. They're subducting or going down beneath Indonesia, and they cause disturbances that cause melting, which then cause the volcanic material to bubble up to the surface.
As we know, that in Indonesia, lots of fault zone, and in north of Lombok, there's a thrust system because the back thrust is a fault zone that dipping to the south like dipping 30 degree just below the Lombok, below the north coast of Lombok. So during the interseismic, it's been pressure from the south because the Australian continental pushing northward.
Unlike the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, which killed 200,000 people, the earthquake in Lombok recently occurred multiple times in largely the same area within a span of just 3 weeks. Barely a week after the first earthquake on 29th July, a tragic 6.9 magnitude earthquake hit in the same vicinity again, killing more than 460 people and causing more than 355 aftershocks.
Once you have an earthquake, the earthquake relieves stress by the fault moving, okay? That actually induces greater stresses around it, which can then lead to earthquakes afterwards around it. In fact, that's why we have aftershocks. When a rock starts to break, it causes stresses to concentrate around the break. So like a crack in a car windshield, you'll notice over the days or weeks, it'll propagate further and further across to your sorrow, and you have to go to the shop and get it replaced, right? So in the case of an earthquake fault, you can have a small patch of that fault break. It produces stresses around the edges, which then sometimes cause aftershocks, which are smaller than the main shock, or it can even trigger a bigger earthquake off to the side. So in this case, there's been a whole sequence of earthquakes, all basically on the same fault, that fault that along which Lombok is being pushed out to the north towards Sulawesi. So none of them are in exactly the same place, but they seem to be triggering one after another.
It is rare for one island to be hit so hard and so often by an earthquake. Equally unusual, the quakes occurred with almost similar magnitude and in quick succession. That also makes the search and rescue efforts very challenging, especially for those involved in the search and rescue operations.
Bagaimana situasi di atas penggaliannya, Sandy?
Korban yang di sini laki-laki.
Yang paling susah adalah karena kita tidak bisa mendatangkan alat berat sampai ke lokasi ini. Itu pertama yang membahayakan. Tanah ini masih labil. Kita masih bersyukur kepada Yang Maha Kuasa karena tidak turun hujan. Kalau turun hujan ini lebih danger lagi, ya. Makanya kita yang tugas di atas, orangnya tertentu yang punya kualifikasi khusus. Tidak semua orang ini bisa. Jadi kita punya kualifikasi khusus untuk mengatasi persoalan ini. Sementara kita menggunakan air ini karena kita takut apabila menggunakan alat bisa mengenai jasad atau bodinya itu bisa hancur. Jadi kita dengan alat ini bisa kelihatan sedikit baru kita gali. Seperti itu.
SAR gabungan!
But as search and rescue missions continue in earnest, it has not entirely dispelled the worries among many residents who are residing in this earthquake-prone region. Many are fearful that stronger and deadlier earthquakes may happen again in the future. Is the nation bracing itself for the next big one?
That's a big hypothetical. Any scientist, being honest, would say, yes, it's a possibility, but we have no evidence that suggests it will happen. We know that sometimes earthquakes occur and then things get quiet. We know that other times earthquakes occur and they end up being the foreshock to a bigger earthquake. But we do know that because this big fault does exist along the coast, and not all of it's broken in this series of earthquakes, we know that it's certainly plausible that something bigger could happen. The subduction zone off the west coast of Sumatra was quiet for more than 150 years. Almost nothing was happening with regard to earthquakes for a long, long time. And then in 2004, the great 9.2 happened. A great foreshock happened only 3 months later in late March of 2005. And then 2.5, 3 years went by, and then in I think October 2007, there was a magnitude 8.4 with a 7.9 aftershock. There is still a big gap between the 2005 and 2007 earthquakes. And we know from looking at corals that have been uplifted many times in the past 1,000 years that that section should break about every 200 and some odd years. And it's coming up on 200 years. So we've made a forecast, actually, that sometime in the next couple of decades, there's very likely to be another very big earthquake, a great or giant earthquake, something on the order of an 8.5 to 9 earthquake. That would be from the equator going south about 400 or 500 kilometers.
Since the massive 9.1 magnitude earthquake that struck the Indonesian island of Sumatra in December 2004, many questions have been asked. How could a country like Indonesia address its vulnerability to earthquakes and tsunamis? 14 years on, similar questions have again emerged following a string of powerful earthquakes that have hit the island of Lombok recently. If anything, the latest tragedy has again served as a wake-up call for Indonesia to think of ingenious ways to address the vulnerabilities of the people living in the active seismic zone like Indonesia.
Past several years, not many people aware that the northern part of the Nusa Tenggara, from Flores, Lombok, even to Bali, is also prone to earthquake and tsunami. So I think these events should, like a wake-up call, that we should also aware of this northern part of the islands.
To address the worries among the locals about earthquakes, the scientists would often go down to the village to conduct regular dialogues with their leaders. Their main concern is to convey the right information to the villagers about future aftershocks and what to do when another disaster strikes.
Yang kegiatan sehari-hari di pasar itu yang belum.
Karena material atau karena
Karena ada kekhawatiran.
Masih khawatir itu.
Iya, kekhawatiran datang tiba-tiba gempa datang gitu ya. Itu yang dikhawatirkan.
Jadi istilah-istilah yang di BMKG untuk waspada dan lain-lain, saya kira masyarakat belum tahu ya.
Belum tahu.
Jadi yang terbayang, yang terpikirkan, pokoknya tsunami lari kan gitu kan?
Iya.
Tempat tinggi kan gitu.
The fear that it shouldn't be if they were educated well about the earthquake and how to cope with the earthquake if it happened. So I think that's the things that we should think in the future. I think we have to educate people better in the future so they understand how to face it.
Educating about living on the ring of fire, living in proximity to volcanoes and big earthquake faults should just be a part of your culture. It should just be something you teach your kids, and you say, you know, your generation may or may not experience it, but we're spending the money, spending the time to harden the infrastructure, to educate you about plate tectonics and so on. And in the long run, you still end up losing some people, you still end up losing some infrastructure, but it's 1 or 2 orders of magnitude less than you'd lose if you paid no attention whatsoever.
The question is, what more can a developing country like Indonesia do to prevent and mitigate the impact of such disasters in the future? As the island lies in tatters, the future of Lombok, for now, remains uncertain. Many are unsure just how safe this island will be in light of the recent fatal earthquakes. With Lombok being marketed as one of Indonesia's top tourist destinations, can its lucrative tourism sector bounce back from this latest tragedy? Will tourists return to this idyllic island? About a month after the first earthquake rattled the island, the people of Lombok have begun to gradually rebuild their lives and return to some sense of normalcy. Farmers have gone back to the fields to harvest their crops. Electricity has already been restored in some parts of the island. And children have also returned to school, although not in huge numbers. This primary school in central Lombok, for example, wasn't hit as bad as all the other buildings in the northern part of Lombok. But the damage remains quite visible. The school has a total of 400 students, but only 150 of them are now back in school. Most of the lessons are now conducted at these makeshift classes due to the damage done to many of the classrooms, rendering them unusable.
Di sini Pak mengenai plafon rusak akibat dari marmer yang runtuh. Tiangnya pecah. Ini mungkin sambungan dari tiang pertama ke tiang yang kedua waktu pembangunan. Ini kelas 5A juga sama seperti 5B, sangat fatal. Dan di sini juga ada retaknya. Jadi sehingga anak-anak di dalam kegiatan proses KBM-nya tidak bisa berjalan dan tidak bisa dilaksanakan di dalam kelas. Ini akibat dari gempa semuanya. Dan juga bangku-bangku di sekolah kami juga sudah banyak yang lapuk.
Despite the damage and the disruptions to the daily school operations, life has to go on. Reconstructing the damaged building and getting the children back to school, therefore, have become the main priority for now.
Dan kemudian anak-anak untuk kelas 6, alhamdulillah dia lebih kuat. Jadi anak-anak untuk kelas 6 karena kita pikirkan untuk masa depannya dan sebentar lagi akan menghadapi ujian, sebentar lagi akan menghadapi ulangan semester dan sebagainya. Jadi kami khusus untuk anak-anak kami kelas 6, kami prioritaskan untuk belajar di tempat-tempat yang sudah kami tentukan seperti itu. Jadi beginilah kondisinya sekolah kami dan mudah-mudahan pemerintah peduli dan cepat direhab kembali sekolah ini. Kasihan anak-anak kami di sini butuh ruangan tempat melaksanakan pembelajaran. Kami mohon dukungan dari semua pihak untuk ikut berpartisipasi di dalam kegiatan pembangunan sekolah SD 5 Mataram.
In the meantime, a team of engineers from the Mataram Department of Civil Engineering have already been deployed to assess the safety of the buildings across the island. Ni Nyoman Kanchanawati is leading the team of structural engineers that will assess the damage to schools on the island.
Hari ini kita rencananya akan asesmen sekolah, yaitu Sekolah Dasar Negeri 6 Mataram. Kami ada beberapa tim dari posko tanggap bencana. Jadi dari tim-tim itu dibagi tugas, ada yang mendapatkan di Kecamatan Mataram, Kecamatan Cakra, dan Kecamatan Ampenan. Kebetulan saya dan tim mendapatkan tugas untuk Kecamatan Mataram dan Cakra. Kami bergerak based on request dulu karena beberapa sekolah ada yang masih bagus, beberapa sekolah ada yang ya rusak seperti itu. Dari sebenarnya sekolah-sekolah sudah diakses oleh PUPR, namun karena mungkin masih ada keraguan dari pihak sekolah, maka melalui Depdiknas kami bekerja sama juga dengan Depdiknas. Jadi sudah beberapa sekolah dari minggu lalu kami lakukan asesmen dan hari ini rencananya di SD 6 Mataram.
Once assessments have been done, Ni Nyoman will then give schools an evaluation about their safety status. If they aren't safe, the schools will be given recommendations on the type of reinforcements needed to help secure the buildings.
Belajar dari pengalaman dari beberapa negara dan kebetulan kami sempat belajar dari pengalaman gempa Christchurch. Di sana langsung berubah KUD untuk pedoman standar gempanya langsung diperbaiki. Kemudian dari standar yang ada itu setiap rumah memiliki, setiap bangunan itu ada persyaratan khususnya ya agar lebih aman terhadap gempa. Dan yang paling menarik dari pembangunan kembali di bangunan-bangunan di Christchurch itu bahwa sebagian besar bangunan menggunakan peredam gempa. Jadi fungsi peredam gempa ini agar percepatan yang terjadi di dasar tanah itu tidak diteruskan ke bangunan. Rata-rata bangunan di Christchurch sekarang menggunakan sistem isolasi ini, istilahnya base isolation. Dan ternyata di pedoman gempa, ketahanan gempa di Indonesia yang terakhir tahun 2012 itu sebenarnya sudah ada mengenai bangunan yang menggunakan peredam gempa itu, namun belum banyak diimplementasikan ya. Pembangunan rumah baru, desain dan pada saat pembuatannya di lapangan pun harus mengikuti standar yang ada.
The assessment will give an understanding of Indonesia's building standards and what needs to be done to improve its structure even further. The idea is to help minimize the damage to lives and property should another calamity occur. One village in particular has caught the attention of the new governor of Lombok, Zulkifli Mansyah. Sembagik is a secluded village in northern Lombok. Despite being near the epicenter of the earthquake, not a single home here was affected by the tremors, even though the houses were built using a mixture of sand, wood, and other plant products.
So this is Sembagik, is a village in the northern part of Lombok, which is close to the central or where the earthquake started. And we can see that all the houses, none of them are destroyed by the earthquake. Maybe the design of the houses is really amazing, that even very heavy earthquake wasn't able to destroy the houses here.
Sedikit Pak Gubernur, kami sangat butuh dana. Kalau kepala keluarga di sini 104 ya. Ada yang baru-baru kawin 104. Jumlah jiwanya 396. Saya rasa sih sementara sudah 2 kali gempa besar di sini. Makanya masyarakat di sini dianggap aman, makanya dia ngungsi ke sini sebagian.
However, in many of the disaster-prone regions like Indonesia, it'll be hard to leave everything to chance. Although the villagers may have been spared the full brunt of the earthquake, they may not be so lucky the next time if another earthquake hits the region. Proper education and improvement in building standards seems to be the best option to help residents cope with the aftermath of a disaster.
Jadi dalam proses rehabilitation ini tentu akan mencoba mengeduket masyarakat ya tentang bagaimana mengantisipasi bencana. Ternyata kita ini sangat rentan terhadap bencana. Nah yang kedua tentang reconstruction-nya juga perlu didesain khusus supaya tata kelola dan cara kita membangun bangunan ke depan itu lebih baik dibandingkan yang ada sekarang. Oleh karena itu saya tidak memaknai ini sebagai beban yang berat, tapi mudah-mudahan ini tantangan untuk menata lebih baik di masa yang akan datang.
The Japanese have a long recorded history with many tsunamis in various parts of their country, on the west coast, mostly on the east coast. And so they have made a concerted effort over the decades and centuries to educate their youngsters, to educate their populace about the occurrence of tsunamis. They've also invested huge amounts of money in understanding where those tsunamis could happen. And so they actually they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on geodetic instruments offshore underwater to transmit data on deformation. When an earthquake happens, they have geodetic information from offshore, believe it or not, in hundreds of meters of water that transmits to their data centers, and they analyze it in real time, and then they know what they should give in the way of a warning. So there's no easy answer to what Indonesia might do. It's a long road to hoe. It's a long process of education over generations. It's a process of investing in scientific infrastructure, investing in mitigating infrastructure like tsunami walls, harbor gates, buildings that are resistant to minor tsunamis.
As governor, Zulkifli Mansyah not only has rebuilding of homes on his mind, he also has to think about Lombok's all-important tourism-dependent economy. Lombok is one of Indonesia's most important tourism hubs. In fact, the island has been earmarked by the government as one of the emerging tourist destinations. It's part of the government's big plans to replicate the success of the resort island of Bali in 10 other tourist spots in Indonesia. And Lombok is one of them.
Pertama, we have to make sure bahwa NTB ini, especially Lombok, is friendly to investment, business community. Karena poverty, unemployment are still serious issues. Oleh karena itu, sebagai pemerintah, kita betul-betul akan melayani, memfasilitasi dunia usaha agar mereka mau melakukan investasi di Lombok ini. Yang kedua, to make sure bahwa Lombok, NTB ini friendly to visitors. Nah, a lot of beautiful places ada di sini. Oleh karena itu kita akan berusaha sekuat tenaga melakukan repositioning, rebranding, dan mengeducate masyarakat tentang pentingnya safety.
But the earthquake has cast a shadow on those plans. It has left the beaches mostly deserted, with the exception of this single tour bus, which has arrived with domestic tourists from Indonesia's capital, Jakarta.
Saya melihat keindahan nuansa di sini, pantainya, dan memang kami sendiri belum pernah ke sini. Jadi memang menjadi tujuan kami ke sini. Sebenarnya kami juga ke sini ini agak takut juga, takutnya bukan apa, karena katanya ada gempa. Tetapi pas kita tanya sama orang Lomboknya langsung, gempanya itu adanya di bagian utara. Sementara yang kita kunjungi nggak terkena gempa. Jadi kami yakin pergi ke sini.
But members of the general public still have their reservations about going to Lombok for a vacation.
Kemarin tuh kan saya bilang sama teman-teman saya mau pergi ke Lombok. Loh, ngapain kamu ke sana? Kata gitu, di sana tuh ada gempa gitu. Kok kamu malah mau holiday, malah mau piknik, apa mau senang-senang di sana gitu? Nggak takut? Saya bilang, nggak takut. Orang emang yang terkena gempa itu beda bagiannya, saya bilang gitu.
After the single tour bus left the area, the beaches, which were usually teeming with foreigners, are left barren once more. Any tourists are a rare sight.
Fortunately, we had some friends here, and we asked them, what the situation was actually like, and they told us, in the south, there's no problem. So we felt more reassured by that. Yeah, but it's been really lovely. Yeah.
Very relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
Souvenir peddlers among the beaches of Lombok are also suffering from the emptiness. With no prospective buyers in sight, they have no way to try and drum up their business.
Iya, kalau di sini orang Australia, Prancis, Itali, sama orang Spain di sini banyak sekali. Apalagi ini sepak bola itu ya orang Prancis menang. Kalau dulu banyak orang Prancis di sini, apalagi sekarang orang Prancis yang juara 1 di sini, dia full tamu. Aduh, kalau pendapatan ini udah sepi sekali sekarang. Kalau dulu-dulu memang agak lumayan. Kalau bulan Juli, Agustus, itu tamu full di sini di Tanjung A. Jualan agak risau, dah sedikit, agak sepi, kebelanjanya kurang, kita tidak terlalu banyak pendapatan. Kalau ini 1 bulan udah full, tidak ada tamu datang, sepi.
With a sharp decline in tourists, travel agencies have also been negatively affected. Droves of travelers used to flock to this idyllic beach destination. That all changed after the earthquake.
Untuk situasi sendiri sebelum gempa, untuk tamu dan wisatawan mancanegara maupun dalam negeri, kita banyak sering juga untuk datang ke sini, dalam arti jumlahnya juga banyak dan itu terus datang memang untuk sebelum pas gempa. Di Lombok sendiri kita ada big season-nya itu di bulan Juli dan Agustus sebenarnya, dan kita banyak acara-acara besar di sini tentunya di bulan ini. Biasanya saya kalau untuk sebelum gempa itu sendiri kita bisa dapat rombongan itu sekitar 100 sampai 200 orang. Nah, tapi di pasca gempa ini baru perdana saya bawa tamu itu sekitar 50 orang dari Jakarta, dan saya berharap maksudnya ini tidak akan berkelanjutan, dan saya optimis bahwa memang Pulau Lombok ini aman.
The powerful earthquakes that struck the island of Lombok in the past few weeks have raised questions about the future of this tourism-dependent island. They've shaken Lombok to its core, causing widespread damage to homes and the livelihood of its people. As residents gradually pick up the pieces, it remains unclear if Lombok can bounce back from the calamity. The reality is, Indonesia lies in the most tectonically active regions of the world, and the recent earthquake is a stark reminder of just how fragile life is, especially for the people living in these earthquake-prone regions. Realizing this danger, coupled with a comprehensive plan to improve the structural quality of the buildings located in the high-risk regions, will help mitigate the impact of another major disaster. The question is, does the country have the financial muscle and the wherewithal to embark on such a costly venture? it appears that the solution may not be as clear-cut as it seems.